Progressive presents Get Pumped. Inspiration to help you do insurance stuff.
Okay, time out. You're gonna let your budget be the boss of you? Take control with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Tell us what you want to pay for car insurance, and we'll help you find options that fit your budget. Here's some music to get you pumped. Da-dong, 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 dang, dang. I hear your budget laughing at you. Oh, wait, that's just those kids laughing at me. Ignore them! Da-dong, da-dong,
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This cold world, I show much concern for this generation and this way of thinking that we've all learned. We took a tragic turn, but the problem is that we ran right into it. The minds we influence, the lives we have drawn to the right and the wrong. We can never move forward till we understand where we've gone and move past from it. Yet we're still convinced that there's resolution. We can't make a change when the minds are polluted. Live in an illusion, there is no solution. Do we know the way? Yeah, we know the way. Let's get away from this crazy place. The world is against us. That's put on display every day. That's put on display every day. Yeah, we know the way. Yeah, let's get away from this crazy place. The world is against us. That's put on display every day. That's put on display every day. And sometimes hope is just a dream. Man, I really hope it's just a dream. They treat us like machines, systematic routine. While they destroy our self-esteem and we can't intervene. I'm tired of walking on eggshells, wondering when the death bell will register in my brain. I'm insane. I drink my thoughts away. And now I'm mentally sane. But still life is the same as the road we came. I'm back to reality. No one to blame but myself. It's a shame. I'll refrain from these thoughts in my mind. It's a game. My mind is a game. Yeah. I'll refrain from these thoughts in my mind. It's a game. My mind is a game. I have nothing to gain. But yet my soul remains.
And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Sometimes things happen that cannot be explained. Things that most people would feel better if these things did not exist. That is where we come in. From A to Z, we logically examine events of high strangeness. We are Forest Moon Paranormal. And this is S4.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, there we go. And welcome to S4, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. Tonight we are discussing Halloween. Does it attract the paranormal? So it's not on the show. We might have Markham later on, but maybe not. So we have R. Keith Andrews, our alien race specialist, Michael Hall, the paranormal lawyer and owner of UFOI Team, and Cole Wegleitner, our FMP research specialist of urban legends and lore, and the owner of DJ of Sound. So tonight's show is brought to you actually by Statement of Sound DJ service with Cole Wegleitner. And our music comes from Hoodie Dat and Birdman Jr. with the voiceover from our one and only Seth Kinsey, who used to be on the show long ago and is still around. So how's everyone doing tonight?
Doing just great, thanks. How's yourself?
Absolutely wonderful.
Oh, it's good. It's good. So we had interesting training today. It was fun, actually. Very small training. Very small numbers, anyway. So, you know what? That's an awesome idea. Joe wants us to talk about the Great Pumpkin. You got anything for us on the Great Pumpkin, Cole?
The Great Pumpkin. Does he mean the Charlie Brown mystery?
Would that be the same?
Or are we actually talking the lore of the jack-o'-lantern?
Well, we've got the jack-o'-lantern covered. I know that. But, you know,
Yes,
Great Pumpkin comes from Charlie Brown. I wonder, you know, and that particular story, you know, it's kind of like Santa Claus. You know, the Great Pumpkin comes down and gives toys to all the good boys and girls in the pumpkin patch. Is there anything similar to that one?
Actually, there is a little bit. So, Halloween stems from three different histories: the Gaelic and Welsh influence, the Christian influence, and then the spread to North America, of course. For the Christians, it was called All Hallows Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And what was believed is in some of the cultures of Christianity, they set out what they called soul cakes. And that in exchange for prayers given to the souls of their ancestors, these soul cakes were given to young children. And it wasn't said that the parents set out these soul cakes, but that the souls did them themselves. So it could actually be considered a Great Pumpkin type of situation where an entity is giving these cakes to the children instead of them going door to door and getting them from the adults. So I guess that could kind of lead into it?
Kind of, yeah. And
But as for the Great Pumpkin himself, that's to actually have something in lore that matches that exactly. It's pretty hard to find, I would think.
Right, right. You know, and Joe's sitting there. Yeah, it's makes, you know, Charlie Brown the first paranormal investigator.
At least since 1966.
Right. So what?
Yeah.
What's the, you know? So tonight's topic. What's the big draw? So what do we have as far as you know? Why does it seem like? And I'm trying to figure out how to call Markham in, and I'll get to that. Meantime, what is the big? Why is the paranormal scene, you know, is the most active around Halloween time? You want to take that, Cole?
I'm sorry, I was looking up something. What was you at?
Nice, just ignore
So, so when people think of, you know, it seems like the paranormal shows get they explode when Halloween comes around, and everyone's all of a sudden interested in the ghost hunt and this and that. Why would that be?
Well, honestly, since the time, I would say that is mainly spurred on by the cinematic aspect of our culture. So a lot of the scarier movies have come out during Halloween time.
Right.
Some of your greatest have been October 13th. One of the first Jason movies came out. Freddy Krueger first expanded in Halloween during Halloween time. All of the main slasher films were Halloween based for the release date. Having that extra scare at this time, this month, I just saw what Joe wrote. No, I'm not from the bottom of a well, but if I was, that little girl from the ring is down here with me. So, but with those people, with those influences into our culture, Halloween kind of became the basis for items that were scary. Because if you look at the progression of our costumes that we put our kids in, for when they first started, the main two that came out were pumpkins, like jack-o'-lanterns, and skeletons. Those were the main two. And those again branch off our histories of the holiday. Because it is All Hallows Eve.
True.
So with the Christian point of view, and then the jack-o'-lantern comes, of course, from the Celtic side. So with those popularizing and then skeletons leading to scarier and scarier items, the draw for the paranormal would honestly come from, I would have to say, pop culture, is how I'd put it.
I know. I think I'd have to agree with that. You know, because you got all the TV shows. Of course, they ramp up. You know, and all these paranormal teams, they jump out and they go on ghost hunts and whatnot, and it's just, you have to wonder, what is it about Halloween? You don't see it at Christmas time. You don't see it at Easter. You know, why Halloween?
You know, actually, the wintertime itself seems to kind of tend towards those kinds of stories. Maybe it goes back to the fact that, you know, in the wintertime, people had to stay in earlier. There was not so much light. And of course, it got colder. People had to, you know, sit around the fire to keep warm. And there was a little bit more extra time, of course, to talk and tell stories and reflect on certain things in the wintertime. Let's face it, most of the crops have already been either harvested, and the winter time now is a time to basically survive and get through. So, you know, I always look for things like, you know, the stories that have been out there. You know, Edgar Allan Poe and Mary Shelley with the story of Frankenstein, and even Charles Dickens during the Christmas season with, you know, the Christmas Carol. Those are stories that people just love to tell and sit around almost like the primordial campfire and have the elders, you know, tell us the stories of old. Those are the kind of things that remind me of Halloween and the stories that that kind of precipitate this strange conglomerate of a holiday that we celebrate called Halloween.
And good points. What did you find out about the history of Ireland, which is a lot of the origin of, like with the like Markham was saying earlier with the turnip?
Okay, so you're going to have to correct me on the way I say this, Eric. Samhain?
Samhain.
Okay, so yes. So the actual traditional Irish festival was called Samhain, and it marked the end of harvest season, beginning of winter, or the darker half of the year. It was also seen as a time when the boundary between this world and the other world thinned. So spirits or fairies could more easily come into this world and were particularly active. So from that point of view with the pagans, that could be a view of where it's a draw for the paranormal, where there would be more activity for the paranormal during this time, is if that veil is truly thinner, there would be more activity.
Right, and you know, we've actually discussed the veil. Let's talk about the veil again, Keith.
Well, the veil itself isn't actually getting thinner, even at Halloween itself. What happens though is that more people are aware of it, or more people attribute Halloween to an increase in ghostly appearances and other paranormal phenomenon. thereby meaning the energy output goes up. As soon as you have the energy input go up from this side, it makes it easier to punch a hole from the other side. This is why you get more people recognizing it. It's not, but the veil itself is still in perfectly good shape.
And that actually makes sense. And you know, it goes right down to with thought forms. You know, everyone gets spooked at Halloween. It's almost like a conscious, you know, a joy. What's the word I'm looking for? A global consciousness where everyone automatically has fear at Halloween because of the movies.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's face it, the Halloween movies and a lot more people recognize the frightening things, not because they're necessarily frightening, but because they're abnormal, and that makes people uneasy. Net result, you associate fear with the whole 9 yards.
Now, I'm going to ask you a silly question. What do aliens think, off-worlders, when they see people, humans, dressed up as off-worlders at Halloween?
Well, in all fairness, they kind of look at it as local culture. The xenosocioeconomic investigators, if you will, do notice the shift in the quite frankly industrial side of the world at that time, and I do mean on a global level. They don't take offense to it, but they do find it curious how people can dress up like, for instance, E.T. or a Gray, and see that it's frightening. Now, of course, you start dressing up as some of the other aliens, and yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, do you see them? Do you think any of them see some of the different races that are portrayed in human alien, you know, Halloween costumes as a threat?
Do they see the images of the different costumes? Like, for instance, if you see a costume of demon, do the off-worlders see that as a threat? That's what you're asking?
Yeah.
No. Because to them, all of them are just simply another race. You know, so from their standpoint, it's more a question of whether or not some of the individuals within the costumes have more abilities than what they're telling people, and whether or not those same people are willing to accept that they've got abilities, which is where it gets a little confusing.
So Joe's got an excellent question. So do aliens get upset at the cultural appropriation if we dress up like one of them?
Not in the least. They get upset if you do something like, for instance, if you take a decent race and you dress up and start breaking the law, if their race doesn't tend to break the law, then they get a little testy. But then they also get testy at some of the movies that come out.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially when you know, the U.S. government is shooting down their craft.
Well, yeah, and, you know, the thing is, they open fire, they try and shoot down the craft, and then go, "Are you friendly?" You know,
right?
Usual comment is not anymore.
So, Michael, I want to bring your expertise in on here. Do we see a rise? You know, we see a rise in UFO sightings at different, I guess, seasons would be the easiest way to look at it, because you see a rise at Christmas, it seems, sometimes, but do we see any kind of a spike at Halloween?
You know, I think you're probably right. I think probably during the winter months when the first winter hits, And then probably in the summer months when people start going outside. Any kind of a new paradigm for human beings seems to make them more aware, for at least a period of time. And I know, the 4th of July in the summertime seems to really garner a whole lot of UFO sightings. People are out late at night and, watching for fireworks and shooting off their own. And of course, they're more apt to view things at that point. In the wintertime, probably mostly during the winter, you're not going to see too many people out and about. Although when it comes to Halloween, it seems like that's not as cold as it is later on. So everybody's out and about for the Halloween season. So yeah, that would be interesting to do a little informal study with the National UFO Reporting Center and see if they have indeed a spike, in that regard.
Well, statistically speaking, you do see a rise at Christmas time. I have seen that, and which comes to question. I expect a rise during the summer when there's more people outside, there's more people looking at the skies. But in winter it's cold. Everyone's inside. So why would there be a rise?
I don't know that traditionally there is a rise, but it would be something that you might want to attribute to potentially clear skies, clear cold evenings, where it seems to me in the wintertime the night sky seems a lot more brilliant in a lot of places around the world. The precession of the Earth and the tilting of the axis kind of brings us maybe closer to our nearby heavens in the atmosphere. So that might have something to do with it. And of course, then again, there is a very distinct, darkness that falls upon, which is different than the darkness that we see in the summertime. So we've got darkness a lot sooner in the day, lasts a lot longer in the evening, of course, and sticks around a lot longer in the morning. So obviously, when you expand the window of opportunity to see, paranormal activity and unidentified aerial phenomena, that might account for a rise in the sighting reports as well.
Okay, good points. Good points. So this one's going to go to Keith. Joe wants to know: do alien races have holidays? And I know that's going to depend on the race. It's going to depend on because every race has their own culture, basically. But do you know of any specific races that have different holidays?
Oh, the reality of that is, yes. Number one, virtually every race has holidays. Okay, or days of celebration. Not necessarily days where you don't work, but certainly days of celebration. And, especially on this planet, like if we take a look at the races on Earth, you take a look at both the fairy folk and the Chitauri, right? Both of which are ancient races. They both have very definitive celebratory days. And even when you when you go off world, much as the Greys are a little bit of a stick in the mud, much like many accountants and bankers I know, they do have what they consider parties or days of celebration. But you are right. It really does depend on what their culture came about. But it's very much like religion. Every race has their own religions as well.
And so I'm switching up here a little bit, and this is a more fun show, I guess you could say, in a certain regard. So, and I'm trying to think how to phrase this, because you have these different off-world costumes, at Halloween. And
right.
Where did they get, it goes along the line of there's certain facts that are released in movies. And that kind of brings, the movie portrayals is what brings the alien costumes into the market, basically. So
Absolutely.
So is that another form of disclosure? Let's have let's have a bunch of little grays running around asking for candy, and I haven't seen any reptilian costumes yet, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, but I also haven't seen any 7-foot trick-or-treaters.
Well, that's a good point. What about Palladians? I haven't seen any Palladian costumes.
No, but, and in all fairness, that one I can understand because very few people have gotten a clear look at an actual Pleiadian. But no, the reality is Hollywood will have and will continue to have a much bigger impact.
Oh, I can't wait for Project Blue Book to come out on Netflix here in December. I'm looking forward to that one. That one actually looks good.
Yeah, me too. That's going to be great.
Yeah, I haven't seen the lead-in for it, but then that's not surprising. I don't exactly watch TV a lot.
So, Kayla's got a question. Do any ETs ever dress up as humans for any reason?
Yeah, well, talk about the hybrids, boy. You never know.
We could go the really sour route and go, yeah, when they're hunting, but, But the answer to that is, oddly enough, yes. But you'll find that more when you're dealing with the Mobians or the Nordics, when they're trying to emulate human, like when they're trying to educate their own people and emulate the human interaction. Yeah, that's where you find the better portion of it.
So, Joe's saying when they really need to get some tacos. Yeah, human tacos. Can you imagine an alien taco truck? Not even going to go there.
I can. Have you seen some of the Mexican ones? I can.
That would be a perfect character for the next Men in Black movie. You know, all these aliens are running these strange things, you know. I think that'd be great. An alien taco truck, you know.
Didn't they kind of went out? That was a pesticide truck. Never mind, in the first one.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I was thinking on the gun check there where they had the other one.
I wouldn't have bought tacos from him either. Just saying.
So, talking about the veil. So, what is the veil in anyone's perception? Is it an ethereal veil? Is it in the astral? Is it invisible? Is it visible by any kind of eye? Can cats and dogs see this veil? In the fourth dimension. What is our perception of the veil?
Well, from my standpoint, the answer across the board is yes, except for the fact it's not in the fourth dimension. It's in the third dimension, running at a vibratory rate too fast for the standard human eye to see, or for that matter, for the standard human ear to hear.
Okay, so does it create a vibration?
Yes.
And
it also carries a scent with it.
It carries what?
A scent with it.
Okay. Is it thinner at any certain point on the planet?
No. Not at all. Because you got to remember, that veil is the connectivity between all things. So in order for it to get thinner, you'd have to have all things missing, or a good chunk of them, and that includes the planet.
Okay, so can we see the veil kind of like the atmosphere?
In a lot of ways, the answer is yes. The best way I can explain it is if you take a look at the atmosphere and you defocus your eyes so you're looking at two images at the same time, you'll likely see the overlay. Of course, I'm not entirely certain that's going to work for a lot of people.
Right. So, and we've talked about the veil in several different shows, which is why I'm kind of beating it up now, because, it's closer to Halloween. This is where everybody thinks the veil's getting thinner, and to an extent it is, but not on the way people think it is. It's getting thinner mostly, again, because of global consciousness. The more people are aware of it, the more people are scared and fear feeds it, the more they're bringing things in. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, because as soon as you make contact, it does provide a gateway. It's not so much the veil, but you put enough people looking through, somebody's is going to forget to put their protection up, and all of a sudden you guys have a mess on your hands.
And I wouldn't even say it's that. Like this is the time where young kids are playing with Ouija boards. This is the time where young kids are walking in, not even young kids, adult teenagers, I'd say is how I'd put it, are walking into cemeteries trying to do a seance.
Yes, which has got to be one of the dumbest ideas available, but what the heck? I'm not saying I didn't do it. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you right now I did.
Well, and I'm just saying, everyone wanted Aunt Trudy's peanut butter cookie recipe, and they had to get it. That was the only way.
And if you look at all the energy that's projected, I mean, whether it's through Ouija boards, right now you're absolutely right. I can guarantee right now is when everyone's running to Target to go to the game section and pick up that Ouija board. Because why? It's Halloween. This is when all the new horror movies come out. You've got Spirit Board, you've got the movie Witch Board, you've got all these horror movies, and they're portraying Ouija boards as bad, and so everyone's going to run out and experiment with them, and they're going to bring more stuff in, which in essence is showing the veil getting thinner. I can guarantee you by our caseload in Forest Moon that it's not on the rise. It stays the same all year round. So, which is why I'm completely on board with global consciousness and the more, thought forms. Look at Slender Man. The more thought forms you put out there, the more thoughts you put out there, the more you open things up. Now, Joe's got a question. Can people's thoughts or just certain people make the veil thinner? And I would say it's a global thing. It's you have the whole planet all concentrating on Halloween, and that's what brings it through.
Well, yeah, and that's just it. It really boils down to the numbers of people, or the numbers and strength of the different individuals, that determines whether or not enough energy can be generated and enough talent can be drawn together on the other side to actually make the trip. Because you got to remember, in order for a spirit to show up on this side, not only do they have to come through the static of the veil, but they've got to come through with enough energy left over to solidify themselves, to slow their own vibratory rate down enough to be seen. And that does take a fair chunk of energy.
Right, and I totally agree. And so, how does the thinning of the veil affect our animals? How do you think it affects cats and dogs and other animals that can actually see in the fourth dimension? Does it terrify them anymore?
No, in all fairness, it really doesn't. And the reason being, when a ghost comes across, yeah, they can sense the odd energy, and with certain animals, like cats, for instance, it makes them completely edgy, but then they can pick up what's going on. Okay, dogs, the reason they get wired is because the second something smells funny, and you got to remember, when you're coming from the other side, more often than not, you're bringing an interesting scent of, frankly, decay with you that the dogs will pick up, and that's what makes them edgy. But it's not the same idea that humans have that, oh, it's a ghost, therefore it's going to try and kill me.
Right, and that makes sense. So you say it brings a scent of decay. Would that make carnivores a little more, I guess, aggressive?
No, but it will make the scavengers a lot more aware and a lot more active. I don't know if I'd want to say aggressive, because let's face it, you don't exactly have to, sneak up on a corpse. But
carnivores tend to stay away from decay, not to go towards it.
Most animals, but scavengers will go the other direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of as predators. Joe says vultures circling over his house every day. But yeah, no, I was thinking of predators actually. But yeah, you're right. They like the chase. They wouldn't go after the decay aspect of it. So, and getting... So, it's interesting because scavengers, ravens and crows. I mean, ravens and crows are both, aspects of Halloween. So let's talk about some of the symbology. So you got ravens and crows, you've got, skeletons, you got witches, of course, you've got all these Halloween symbology. And why ravens and crows? Is it because they're seen as messengers of the soul? Or do you think it's because of the scavenger aspect of the veil?
Oddly, it's probably both. You got to remember, crows being scavengers, crows and ravens both being scavengers. When you go back to the original, back into the pagan side where you had a lot more of the way of, and even in early religious rites, you had a lot more in the way of sacrifices. These animals would be around a lot. Well, of course, when you start dealing with witchcraft, and I'm talking the old style witchcraft, then you always had the blood around. You always had other things from sacrifices, and of course, having the crows sitting on the tree branches above or on the roof only made total sense from the common populace to all of a sudden attach the crow to the witch. Yeah, right. And then when you add to that the brain capacity of the raven, which are actually, quite frankly, trainable, all of a sudden you have the issue of the witches learning how to communicate properly with the ravens, and now they really want to hang around.
Right, and we got Trip in the chat room saying, yeah, they steal shiny things and are smarter than the people think they're evil. And I agree with that, because personally, the raven is one of my symbols. So completely agree with that. And what's some of the other symbology? Let's discuss symbology of Halloween and where it fits in with the thinning of the veil.
There's an interesting correlation with crows and ravens with the scarecrow still being part of the Halloween tradition as well. You would think that a scarecrow would be the total opposite of a crow, since you're being able to, with this, straw figure, scare away crows or keep them from the crops. But no, it seems to be that scarecrows are kind of in the same boat with skeletons and those kinds of things, as far as a scary, ominous omen of doom as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The whole idea of both sides of the fence, a scarecrow and a crow, are still kind of Halloweenish, in people's minds.
Well, not even in people's minds. I mean, you can go to Walmart any Walmart at Halloween time, and you will find scarecrows. They're $3.99, they're $4.99. But the basic symbol of a scarecrow is still very prevalent today in this season.
Yes, that's right. And I understand that basically the whole idea of a scarecrow, along with being able to scare away the scavenger birds and things from the crop in the fields, was also basically a Celtic good omen or a sacrifice that they would do in the field itself, burning a straw man in the field to hopefully bring good luck to their harvest. So isn't that interesting as well? It even goes back farther than the idea of scaring away crows. It's basically there to entreat the gods for a good harvest as well.
Oh yeah, good old Wicker Man.
Yep.
Yeah, I like the original version of Wicker Man better than the Nicolas Cage version. I think there was an older version than Nicolas Cage, and yeah, that was a human sacrifice to the god of the harvest. Very much Celtic.
The sheep.
Say it again.
The sheep is what they were called. Is what they were sacrificing those to.
Okay, yeah, and so in the second hour, we're gonna keep on talking about symbology. In the second hour, we're actually Cole's gonna divulge us with some Celtic lore from Ireland, and look forward to that. So and many of the traditions we see done today actually do come from Celtic lore of pagan Samhain. So we're not making this a religious show because it has to do with the veil and paranormal, but a lot of the roots do come from Ireland, the Celtic culture and the thinning of the veil.
Well, and Halloween itself is, in a sense, it stems from, it has become a cultural holiday, but it stems from many religious holidays.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what you pull up on that.
Now, on symbology, one of the biggest symbols of Halloween is one that is not man-made. It's fog. Fog is a huge part of Halloween in itself.
Yes.
And October, across most of the countries that celebrate Halloween, October is our foggiest month.
Well, and that's why they sell fog machines at, Spirit of Halloween at Walmart and all the stores that sell Halloween merchandise. They all have fog machines, but they don't need them because fog is the most prevalent in the fall. So
that's right.
And I would have to say too, with fog machines, is a symbol of the veil.
And in a lot of ways, that actually makes sense.
So,
and we have.
Yeah, I know. So, Michael, bringing you back in, I know UFOI team focuses mostly on UFOs, but what's your opinion about Halloween and the thinning of the veil as a paranormal standpoint?
Well, it's believe it or not, it's one of those things that you will actually get people talking more about the paranormal this time of year than you will pretty much any other time, in general. The whole idea of our group is to try to get people to tell us their stories, and if they feel more comfortable this time of year to tell us their paranormal events that they might have experienced. That's pretty much the idea, is that if you can get people talking and interested in a subject that is, I think, very important anyway, the whole idea that we might be visited by alien races, and the fact that there are pretty much everything that we, think is paranormal is probably connected consciously somehow. We need to figure this out as a human race, and that's probably a good time to do that. When people are willing to even ingest, talk about these kinds of things, read the stories, watch the movies, and basically, share the stories that they might not normally share at another time of the year. And of course, again, we go back to the idea that in the middle of the winter, we're almost in some kind of a circadian rhythm to be able to gather together more often, tell stories and listen to stories as if we were, still in a small village, and living around campfires to stay warm. So it's kind of a fascinating time of the year for me to be able to just kind of pick people's brains and find out, what unique things have happened to them that they can't explain, and maybe we can explore together.
And you're absolutely right. This is usually when, people are looking to join a paranormal team. They're looking to learn. And this is where the media comes out and, oh my God, it's, it's Halloween. It's the veil's thin. We gotta learn about the paranormal. And, so this is actually prime time for paranormal teams when it comes to getting the education out to what's really going on. And, have you guys seen a rise in questions, a rise in interest?
Oh yeah, definitely. Ever since the U.S. government got involved in this whole idea of disclosure, where they're actually confirming these things that people have wondered about for so long. The whole idea that UFOs actually exist. The Department of Defense, the Pentagon, on the front page above the fold, and the New York Times, the Post, and these kinds of publications are now making it a lot easier for people to say, yeah, I saw something. They're almost feeling vindicated nowadays to talk about these strange paranormal activities that they've experienced, because there are people now taking this serious. And I think we can all determine just with our own discernment that the mainstream media now is becoming more and more involved in these kinds of things, where before it was like the snicker factor that they would always throw into a story like this. Even the local media. I remember not too long ago, about 6 months ago, the local newspaper in our area, large circulation newspaper, the Daily Herald, did a whole article on the UFO I-Team and interviewed each member, even did video inserts into their online article. And there was no snicker factor at all about a group of highly educated people that are out there studying and investigating UFOs. So I think it's becoming more and more prevalent this time of year, when people are, kind of in that bent anyway of talking about ghosts and telling stories. That's just a perfect time for, by the way, when you go to your local costume party or your gathering of your friends who get together and do these Halloween kind of events, that's what they're going to be talking about. So it'd be interesting to share whatever stories you might have experienced with others who won't ridicule you any longer.
That's something we actually talked about a little bit today, is when you go ask the common person, the normal person who's walking randomly in a store, what paranormal means. What we found when we were passing out Paracon flyers was about, 20% were paranormal. What's that mean? And the other 60% were, oh yeah, you guys do ghosts and spirits. Well, why is it that you say paranormal, everyone automatically jumps onto the haunted bandwagon? Any thoughts?
Well, the biggest issue is, quite frankly, marketing. Because when you take a look at the length of time that Halloween has marketed the idea of ghosts and goblins and, the undead on the whole, the dead and the undead, Halloween has not focused on the UFO or the alien component. Therefore, it literally boils down to the marketing factor and, as we pointed out before, the media. That's right, where the separation has come.
And I would agree. And even looking when we were setting up Paracon, we actually went to a local store and we were looking for little aliens and little Bigfoots. And bear in mind, this is back in September, so really before some of these stores got ramped up for Halloween, which was kind of odd. But the stuff they did have for Halloween was only spirit and ghost, maybe a little tiny alien. One, but you have to go to a major Halloween only store to actually find the good stuff, and you still won't find anything on Bigfoot. Which why is it such a grasp that Bigfoot might not be paranormal?
Well, the problem again boils down to this. People are still, oddly enough, people still seem to have trouble believing that the Bigfoot is even there. It's still got they talk about, well, we haven't got any solid evidence. I don't know about you, but the size of the footprints they keep pulling off, I'm pretty certain that should qualify. But it boils down to, there has been, even amongst the people working in the paranormal field, they seem to separate the non-corporeals and the undead from aliens. Net result, you've got two distinct separations, one through marketing, one through belief structures, that even in the UFO field, in the paranormal field on the whole, there's a distinct schism between them.
And I'm still having a hard time grasping that. I really am. Because, I've always been of the mindset that paranormal means anything outside the paranormal realm, which is Bigfoot, other cryptids, UFOs and abduction, alien interaction, hauntings, and spirits. So, when I do the FMP promos, it's in a variety of groups. And you still get the random individual that wants to argue that, well, how can you believe in aliens? I don't believe in aliens, but there's spirits. Or on the other end of it, why are you talking about Bigfoot? Bigfoot is not paranormal. Yeah, he is. He's still outside the realm of science and culture. So I guess it really comes down to where you're at. I mean, here in the Pacific Northwest, we've got Bigfoot. You could probably talk to about 6 out of 10 people who have had a Bigfoot experience, if not more. But you don't see, the closest you'll find to a Halloween costume involving Bigfoot would be Chewbacca. And I think that's what you have too, isn't it, Michael? You have a Chewbacca costume in your car?
Oh yeah, he's my road buddy. I was in Walmart the other day, and they had an entire bin of. They were just pre-Halloween masks. They weren't really, out there for Halloween, because this was still almost the summertime, end of the summer. And one of the masks, they had a Bart Simpson kind of thing, and one of the masks was a big old Chewy head, and it was actually, a 360-degree head you'd put over yourself, and you could see through the eyeballs, and beautiful long brown hair. So I decided, hey, I'm going to put that on my headrest, on the passenger seat in the front seat of my car. You wouldn't believe the looks that I get going down the road and at stop signs. People are looking looking next to them and seeing my car, and they're going, oh, most people think it's great. Grant Cameron loved it, by the way, up at the Paracon. He, I gave him a ride to the airport, and it took us 5 hours through the driving snow, mile-high passes to get him to the airport, and he got to know Chewy pretty well.
Yeah, I saw that snow very well. We had to drive 18 hours. Well, it wasn't driving 18 hours, but long enough with Lori and Fenton. And yeah, that it wasn't supposed to snow. And ironically enough, October 1st is when you're required to put snow chains on. And well, we have a 4x4, so we didn't need snow chains. But and so Awakening Man is in the chat room, and I got to bring this up because he brings up a point that I guess really grates my nerves, is that everyone looks at Halloween as this big satanic holiday. Not everyone, but it's seen by perception of being a satanic holiday. And so he says in the chat room, I'm glad they don't put Bigfoot in the satanic Halloween realm. Well, they better not. But I'm not going to jump the gun because we're going to get to why is it a satanic holiday here after the break. And it really putting Satanism with the same inkling in line of paganism is annoying to begin with. But to make it a satanic holiday when it's really not, is even worse.
Not anywhere near it, from my understanding.
No, and that really depends on what religion you follow, whether you even believe in a Satan. I mean, just to be blunt.
Well, I can tell you from the research I've done, there's a staggering number of religions that do, albeit paganism is not one of them.
Well, and exactly. And, going by pagan religions, the closest you're going to get to any resemblance of an entity named Satan would be the Greek god Pan, who is symbolized by, a goat's lower body and horns with a human torso. And he's much, much older than any of these other religions that, portray a devil or a Satan or a Lucifer or Beelzebub, with goat horns. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. And we'll come back. We're going to go into a little more history of Halloween and why the veil is tied in with it. So when we come back from break, we're going to continue talking about Halloween. Tonight we have R. Keith, we have Michael Hall and Cole. And you can join us every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time, where you can join us on the Fringe FM for a plethora of other shows like Lagging the Void with Joe Roop. And you can listen for local listeners on KSVU 90.1 FM. So when we come back, we will be continuing.
This is Joe Roop from Lighting the Void, and you're listening to KTLK Digital Broadcasting Station, The Fringe FM.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. There's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Select Joe Roop at checkout at ancientlifeoil.com.
This is Rev Dan Lopez from Spiritual Warrior Today Radio, and you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Bouval, Lon Maladuquette, Aaron Cheek, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts.
You asked for it. We listened. Changes are coming to the Fringe FM. Hear the Paranormal Code with Rich Giordano live Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, starting July 9th.
July 9th, we're going to be going 4 nights a week on the Fringe FM.
Followed by Lighting the Void with me, Joe Roop, live at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Then, stay up with us in the early morning hours for some of the best paranormal and alternative programming around. The truth is out there, and so are we. The Fringe FM.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy. Bugs. I hate bugs. Our home is clean, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. The ingredients in Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. So Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard. Available at orangeguard.com and Ace Hardware.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
This is Preston Dennett from PrestonDennett.weebly.com, and you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
My name is David. I suffered from MS, or multiple sclerosis symptoms, since 1986. For years, doctors tried to help, but didn't give me any real hope. I tried almost everything. I was afraid this was my future, but I did not give up hope. 8 years ago, a healthcare worker told me about ReginaStem. I called ReginaStem. ReginaStem explained how stem cells work. No promises, just a simple explanation of the science. They treated me with respect and understood my journey. For the first time, I felt hope. Now I can jog and snow ski once again. It's been amazing. I have been symptom-free of multiple sclerosis for 8 years. I have learned that stem cell therapy has a broad range of medical therapy, from COPD to chronic pain and diabetic neuropathy. It's an amazing therapy. If you want to talk about your chronic pain or your chronic symptoms, call ReginaStem today.
Call 305-224-1858. That's 305-224-1858. 305-224-1858.
All right, welcome back, guys. And we're back from break. And I just want to, next week, we're going to have a completely different sound, completely different music, completely different everything. And I want to give credit tonight, definitely. So tonight's music came from Hoodie Dat and Birdman Jr. with a voiceover from Seth Kinsey. They pulled through great with one of our old intros that we used, and sounded great. But I'm expecting an even better sound next week for sure. So anyway, we're back to... real quick, let me scroll up here because we had a question in the chat room about Halloween. So who created Halloween and for what purpose? Asking for a friend. So Cole, you're up. What do you got?
Okay. So it's widely believed that many Halloween traditions originated from the Celtic harvest festivals, particularly the Gaelic festival, Samhain. A lot of them have had pagan roots, and Samhain itself was Christianized as a Halloween by the early church. That is argued, however, by the early church that believes Halloween was solely started as a Christian holiday, also known as All Hallows Eve, that starts the 3-day celebration of All Hallowed. So we don't really know who would have actually come up with it first, but due to the fact that Samhain would have been an older holiday, I would have to say it was a part of the pagan religion to begin with.
Well, yeah, and that goes without saying. But where did a devil come into this whole picture?
Okay. So, the way the devil came into it was the Ishi, the spirits or fairies that we talked about earlier. At Samhain, it was believed that they needed to be propitiated to ensure that people and their livestock survived the winter. So offerings of food, drink, and portions of the crops were left outside for them. And the souls of the dead were also said to revisit their homes seeking hospitality. So like people's ancestors would actually come back that day. And that is celebrated throughout the world through many cultures. Places were set at the dinner table for them. They would do different things for them. They weren't only seeking hospitality, but they were also seeking, what the word I'd be looking for, solace. Like they were seeking a place to stay while this holiday was happening, a safe place. So, and people would say prayers and light candles for these souls in order to protect them. And it was believed they were protecting them from the devil himself.
Well, you know, on that, and folks can go listen to our archives and the YouTube channel. Well, we actually did 3 different shows on fairy races. And there is documentation, actually, where if a certain race of fairies, and I can't remember off the top of my head which race it was, but they were the tenders of livestock. And if they didn't get their offering, they went and killed the livestock. Now, you know, looking at the mundane, was that just folklore and the livestock died because of disease or, you know, as winter months and they were just frail? Or was there more to it?
Well, looking to the mundane, over time, Ireland has had many, many potato famines, as they would call them. Well, they haven't always followed the rule of thumb for that we've known today in local farms, which is 4 years. 3 years of harvest for a crop, 1 year of follow.
Right.
Now, potatoes or themselves and turnips are both one of the most nutrient-sucking crops in the world. So when you grow those two, they actually pull more nutrients out of the ground than any other crop. That being said, having their livestock die and having their crops not produce would make sense every once in a while, being that they didn't follow that rule all the time because they couldn't. They had to use the items that they had every year in order to survive the winters.
Right. And if you look at pagan holidays in general, we've got Candlemas in February. And a lot of these holidays are actually geared towards, a lot of the Celtic holidays are geared towards the seasons. They're geared towards how the Celtics lived, especially in Ireland, how they lived, throughout the year, starting with Lammas, which is August 1st, and that was the wheat harvest. And that's when they harvested the wheat, that's when they made Lammas bread. We actually celebrated it in Iraq when I ran groups in Iraq. Then you got Mabon, which is September 22nd, and that's getting a cat out my window. That is the vegetable crop. And then if you go by pagan tradition, Samhain is actually when the god dies, and the god is reborn at Yule. So I got to address something real quick. Trippin saying he thought the candle in the window during Christmas was for the dead to find their way home, which how does the dead tell which candlelit window was for their house? But we'll get to that at Christmas time. When we do our Christmas show, I don't know, are we going to talk about Krampus again? I'm sure Krampus is going to come up again. But we'll discuss that one at the Christmas show, Trip. But, Halloween or Samhain, going by certain pagan traditions, is actually the meat. This is when all the slaughter went on for the, and it was actually all geared towards surviving the winter months. If your livestock didn't survive, you weren't going to make it through the cold winter months of especially Ireland. If your crops failed, you weren't going to make it through the winter months in Ireland. So, when the crops failed, that meant you didn't honor your God properly, which you look at Wicker Man, you look at some of the other traditions they did. That was to ensure the survival of the crops, the survival of the livestock, things of that nature. So that's where the lore comes in. So, go ahead and carry on, Cole, but bring up some more lore.
So from at least the 16th century, this festival included mumming or guising. So throughout Ireland and Scotland, this involved people going house to house in costume or in disguise, usually reciting verses or songs in exchange for food. It may have originally been a tradition whereas people impersonated the sea or the souls of the dead and receiving offerings on their behalf, similar to the custom of souling. Impersonating these beings or wearing a disguise is also believed to protect oneself from them. So you are protecting yourself from that god. Or a lot of people back then believed also the devil himself. You were protected from him while you were running around as dressed up as one of these souls. It's also suggested that the mummers and guisers personified the old spirits of the winter who demanded reward in exchange for the good fortune of the harvest that they got that year. I believe that's actually all I have for the Irish.
There was another kind of aspect to that whole thing too, where also the poor people in the Celtic tradition would go around to the more affluent neighbors in the neighborhood and be given food and drink for a promise to pray for the deceased loved ones of the richer people. That was kind of part of the deal, I guess. So it was almost like you say, kind of a covering, at that time of the year for their deceased relatives as well.
And, that actually kind of falls in line with many pagan traditions in that when they actually do rituals and celebrations at Samhain, which is October 31st, they'll actually have an ancestral altar. And they'll have a picture, they'll have a candle honoring, generally speaking, each year they'll have that altar will be set up for only the ones that died or passed on that year. But then you have some traditions that actually have a very large altar honoring all of their passed on. So I think that kind of goes along that line. Maybe not so much as far as giving the alms, giving the begging for money for prayers, things of that nature. You think?
Yeah. No, I think that there was motivation on both sides of the fence there to perpetuate this holiday or observance. I wouldn't think that they would call it a holiday back then. Probably more of a protection, during that time of year. And of course, we're talking about things in the Celtic traditions, going back maybe 1,000, 1,500 years or whatever. But if you look in the biblical traditions themselves, both the Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible, there's so much paranormal activity and ghosts and witches in those documents that those things go well before the BC era and the Old Testament. So these things have been around with our culture from ancient Babylon, I would imagine.
Well, and you're absolutely right. I mean, even UFOs and Ezekiel's wheel. You've got the Mahabharata with Hindu tradition. I mean, you've got, looking at the whole spectrum, I haven't found any Bigfoot. I mean, but you do find, First Nations going into the Bigfoot arena. But when it comes to the paranormal in general, you in the religious texts, you've got UFO side, even describing aliens in the Mahabharata. Of course, you got the spirit, you've got all the other paranormal activity. So, and that feeds a lot of culture.
Right. Let alone the tales of the giants in the Old Testament and the Nephilim, the sons of God who fell to earth and married the women of the earth and gave birth to these races of giants. All of these amazing stories started our culture off with these kinds of interests anyway, and would probably lead to some of these interesting observances later on in our history.
And what's interesting too, I had the opportunity to, when I was running pagan groups in Iraq, we actually had Turkish special forces that came and joined us. Not that they were pagan, they weren't. They were very much Islam, and were very interested in paganism. So it was kind of cool because we actually got to, pick their brain about Islam and where does the whole terrorism aspect with Islam fit in, and it really doesn't. You got radicals in every belief system, and that's where your terrorism comes from. Islam itself is not a terrorist belief. We actually got into quite a few discussions about the Quran with them, and there's descriptions of fairies, jinn. I mean, even UFOs and whatnot within the Quran. That's obviously not the American version of the Quran that the Americans read and jump up and down about. That's the actual Quran in Middle Eastern countries. Because you look at the Bible, for example, you got 11 billion different variations in translations of it, and none of them is completely accurate. Awakening Man wants to know, at what point in time did Halloween get hijacked from its original intent to what you see today? And or did it? I mean, you look at kids with costumes today, it's kind of parallel to an extent, in a weird variation, I guess. But instead of, turnips, we use pumpkins. Does anyone know at what point in time all that changed?
The late 19th century. During the late 19th century, it was spread to North America. The Anglican colonists of the southern United States and the Catholic colonists of Maryland did recognize All Hallows Eve within their church calendars, but the Puritans of New England maintained strong opposition of the holiday, along with other traditional celebrations within the established church. So, but there wasn't a mainstream likeness of what we saw as what we see as Halloween until there was a mass Irish and Scottish immigration in the 19th century, during the late 19th century, that brought it over here. And since most of our North American areas do not grow potatoes or turnips as one of our main things, they switched from turnips to our modern day pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns that we have today.
And that makes sense. And Tripp's bringing up, Halloween costumes started to appear in stores in the 1930s. The custom of trick-or-treating appeared in the 1950s. The types of products available in Halloween style increased with time. And now you see it like he says. Thank you, Tripp. I always love, I love having a chat room because we always get great input from our listeners. But, and now it's one of the highest, along with Easter, you got Christmas, you got your key holidays that bring a lot of income into marketing and stores and whatnot. And Awakening Man again is bringing up the 30s to the 50s as the era the Nazi influences grew. So where do the Nazis fit in with Halloween?
To me, they honestly don't.
Yeah, and I'm certainly the wrong person to ask on that one.
Although Hitler himself was a great, he's a great believer within the paranormal and the spiritual world. That wasn't well advertised to his followers. It was kind of a shut up and sit down. Quiet. Yeah, it was a shut up and sit down kind of moment with that. And he didn't, honestly, during their regime, there was no ability to celebrate things like Halloween. It wasn't a possibility for them.
Yeah, he was Awakening Man just added, he's an occultist, and I'd agree with that. He did everything from seances. He got involved with deep magic. He was in the UFO field. We all know that. He was into Super Soldier. I think he was into the whole spectrum of both conspiracy and, paranormal, when you want to go that route. So it makes you wonder, with all the experimentation he did he ever play with the veil?
Well, yeah. Although he didn't do it exactly intentionally. You got to remember, anytime you start playing around with modifying people's perceptions or enhancing people's abilities by tapping into their subconscious, by definition, you're tapping into the veil because it is literally connected. And it's through the subconscious that mankind has figured out how to tap into what they call 0-point energy, which is literally tapping straight into the neural net.
Very true. Which goes right back into the thought projection. When you have a mass thought, you make things happen. Again, I'll say Slender Man's one example of that. Any kind of thought form, you put enough energy into your thought process, you'll make things happen. And Tripp says the old costume seems scarier than what the kids wear now, and you know what? Give me a good old clown, they're going to get punched.
I know another guy will do more than punch.
And I'm going to say, my little boy wants to, he's kind of torn between whether he wants to be Chucky. Don't ask where he got that idea. Or Pennywise. And yeah, even Izzy's saying, no, you might get hit if you're Pennywise.
You might get a lot worse than hit.
Yeah, I'd be scared for his own safety if we put him in a clown costume in this day and age.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it personally, unless you don't like your kid.
Oh no! I think our kids are more into the paranormal than most of your adults walking around today. Um, we were actually discussing putting a red balloon on a drone and making it float that way. Um,
I think if you get a gecko, you can get him to run the thing. Of course, you might have trouble getting one, but you know.
So, you've got me thinking here. So, getting to Germany, um, and with the veil, how much experimentation with the veil do you think he actually did? Uh, Aside from making his own people scared.
Well, oddly enough, although he didn't do a lot of the experiment. Now, if we're talking about his experiments, he didn't do a lot. If we talk about him personally, he pushed the limits as far as he could get away with. Because the thing with Hitler was he was a firm believer that what was hidden beyond the veil was where the real power was. Oddly enough, he was mistaken in that. The real power is on this side. The kicker is that you can get better, if you will, you get better access to the varied ideas by tapping into the other side.
And so we going in history, I know he did conjuring, he did seances, things of that nature, and seances alone will pull stuff across the veil. Um, I really suck at my history. Who all do we know he tried to conjure? Do you know?
I know. Yeah. Okay, I'll let you go with that one.
So in some of his, how would I put it, summer houses, they did find evidence of him trying to conjure up certain entities. And also some of his lesser known generals that were involved quite heavily with him, but none of them had war experience. They weren't war generals.
Now,
They
how
would
do
have
you
been
get a general that isn't a war
spiritual
general?
because they weren't used to command his troops. They were used to command the other areas of his expertise, is how I would put it, I guess.
Awakening Man's in the chat room. I guess my answer would be no, Halloween is not paranormal. It's one of those shady gray areas. It is and it is not, because the paranormal is all the time. Is the paranormal any more drawn to Halloween? No, it's not. It really isn't. It's the human condition that makes it more paranormal. Again, because it's seen as the spooky time of season, or the spooky season.
But oddly enough, much as the paranormal isn't drawn to Halloween, the normal is drawn to the paranormal at Halloween.
Perfectly stated. This isn't the only time the veil is seen thin, because June 21st, 22nd is what is called Midsummer, and that is actually considered a fairy holiday. That's supposed to be when the fairies come across the veil the most often.
And I was going to say somebody should inform the fairies, because they come across a lot more frequently than that.
Well, and to be honest with you, on the paranormal side, we're seeing a lot more fairy activity, or I won't say fairy, fae activity, because there's many different races of fae. So to explain without getting deep into it, the fae is an umbrella term for many different races. Fairies just being one race of fae, if that makes sense. Fairies are what you see as well, yeah, to you, of course. But fairies are what many people see as Tinkerbell. What many people, fairies themselves, are actually what you see as nature spirits, basically. the plant spirits, dryads, which are the tree spirits, things like that. They're all part of Fae. Gnomes, trolls. I could again. We've got 3 different shows where we did fairy or Fae traditions. But it's interesting that Midsummer is actually another thinning of the veil point that people celebrate. And again,
I'm not...
but again, it's a very, very big seasonal change, which I think is a big effect of what people see as the veil.
Yeah, pretty much. See, the ironic part of it is that once you understand what the veil really is, it becomes more like, well, I guess the best way to put it, once you understand how it works, the veil is something like a 70s bead curtain. Very easy to get through. And, all it does is separate one realm from the next. But in all fairness, it's just a simple vibratory realm, not a different dimension, as it were.
Can I say something quick, Eric?
Of course, you don't got to ask.
Well, so Awakening Man said that telekinesis and clairvoyance are what paranormal is described as in definition. And then he said, I guess my answer would be no, Halloween is not paranormal. The definition of paranormal is denoting events or phenomena such as telekinesis and clairvoyance that are beyond the scope of normal scientific understanding. Viewing it from that point of view, that didn't make sense, but seeing it from that point of view, Halloween in its traditional sense may not be paranormal. But viewing it in its modern sense, today's Halloween is all about, honestly, scaring each other.
How do you do
For
that?
some reason, we love it. People honestly love to be scared. Otherwise, we wouldn't go to haunted houses. We wouldn't have as many YouTube prank shows as we do. And scientific community cannot explain why scaring our brains gives the same dopamine effect as our happiest moments. A smaller amount, but the same. They honestly cannot explain why that reaction is the same. So therefore, in my mind, reading the definition of paranormal, that is still beyond the scope of normal scientific understanding.
Well, and getting to that, so I get asked how, especially lately, because Forrest Moon has been doing missing persons cases, and people kind of raise their eyebrows. Why is a paranormal team involved with? What does a paranormal team have to do with missing persons? Well,
hopefully nothing to start with.
No, it doesn't. But it's the way that we handle cases that makes us an asset to finding missing people. Because, like you said, telepathy and arts like that are actually paranormal in and of themselves. So, by using a medium, by using the astral team to track the energy of a missing person to locate them on a map. Now, that's tricky in and of itself again, but that is where the paranormal helps find missing people. Not, I guess, the aspect that we do it, but it's how we do it. If that makes sense. I'm trying to think how to explain it, but we get ridiculed and torn apart by people that don't understand what it is we do. And, well, we aren't looking at this missing person as being taken by paranormal, but it's how we use our team. And it just gets so frustrating because we can find a person send it to the appropriate individual that needs to go look in that spot, and they don't get listened to because, we're a paranormal team and they weren't abducted by aliens, they're missing. Well, I know that. Nobody said they were abducted by aliens. We know they're missing and we're finding them for you. And, it's just frustrating.
Well, the ironic part of it where it comes to the paranormal is if you look at it from just a simple definition, it's kind of like paramilitary. Paramilitary is sort of military. Paranormal is sort of normal. And, if you look at it from that standpoint, quite frankly, there's an awful pile of things that fall into paranormal. And of course, where it comes to the missing people side of it, well, if you're able to tap into the hidden energies, especially, you're looking for somebody that you think is dead. Well, from my standpoint, it's kind of obvious that if you're looking for somebody that you're already assuming is dead, finding somebody that can communicate with the ones that are already dead seems to be the most logical solution. If you want to talk to somebody that's Russian, find somebody that can speak Russian. You want to talk to somebody that's dead, find somebody that can talk to somebody that's dead.
Well, and that's where the tricky part is because, some families don't want to accept that they're probably dead. They want to think that they're alive. That's just, human nature. You don't want to recognize that your loved one's passed on. But with the astral, yeah, we can. It's much easier to communicate with spirit than it is with a living individual, but we can do it, and we have done it. But again, it comes down to. I'm trying to think here.
Sure.
So when the person is living and they're communicating with them, it's almost like a telepathic thought without being telepathic. It's just kind of like a thought in their head that, hey, we're here. How are you doing? And where are you at? And I'm sitting here reading chat comments. Are we going to do a show on where Well, we kind of did, Trip. So where did trick-or-treating come from? And trick-or-treating came from Cole?
Okay. Trick-or-treating came from, again, the idea of guising money. So walking around in costumes, going door to door collecting. Well, in the Irish tradition, it would have been, what were they called? They're pretty much potato pancakes, is how I'd describe them. But they had a special name for them. And they would go around and collect them in the names of the souls of their dead. And it was usually the children that sitting around. Now, as they became older, a lot of these children were not so interested in the cakes, and they actually went around playing pranks on the other families around them. And it became a mixture of the two.
That's just kind of...
So yeah, all night you would... Huh?
I said that's just kind of rude, playing pranks on each other.
Yeah, I've never been a really strong proponent for for a supporter of pranks. To me, that never did work well.
But they weren't pranks as we see them today. They would have been. Let me find one here. I'm sorry, it's taking me a second here.
Oh, that's fine.
Technical difficulties.
Well, Awakening Man's bringing up, Hasn't Halloween become a marketing machine for the most part? And I would agree, yeah, and it's getting worse. Every year.
I don't.
I do.
Walk into a Halloween haunted house that someone puts on. Yes, they're there to make money. Most of it's for a good cause, usually, though. Like Fort Casey does their haunted house here in Washington, and like the haunted fort, and it's to raise money to keep the fort going, so people can still learn about the history of that place.
Yeah, but
you walk into there and you watch the people's faces as they walk through. They're scared out of their minds when they're walking through, but when they come out, everyone smiles. Everyone's talking about how much fun it was. To me, that is still Halloween. Yes, there's huge marketing for it. For anything that we do in this country, there is huge marketing, no matter what it is.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I wouldn't go to a haunted fort to go to a haunted fort.
Here's
But that's because, Eric, this isn't haunted to you. You see this stuff every day.
Yeah, that's where the thing is those that work in the paranormal don't tend to go there looking for a shock. Like, for me personally, I don't go and sit down to talk to a psychic or to talk to an alien specialist, because frankly, to me, that is normal. So where I spend my time talking to people is I've got a woodworker that I know close by, that works on carving and that sort of thing. That's where I go. Because FMP studies the paranormal and quite frankly lives inside it, a haunted house that is done up with the intention of bringing a smile to people's face after they get scared to death, well, almost to death, preferably not death. That I do agree is a marketing aspect, but it is still, in essence, being focused on the actual event. Now, if we're going to look at the commercialization side of it, take a look at what they've done with Christmas. They start selling Christmas before Halloween gets out the door. Now that is marketing. That is strictly cash.
Yeah, totally agree. That's where I see the marketing, and this is when you see horror movies coming out year round, but I think you see the bulk of them around now.
Absolutely.
And Tripp's bringing up churches doing treat and trunk and treat gets him, and I get that because you look at the different religions. And this is the season of the witch, the season of the devil, but they're encouraging kids. And, some of them, they're passing out tracts. Some of them, they're preaching. And, here, it's like, really? You have some religions, they don't recognize Halloween per se. They do a fall festival. Well, you're still honoring the same energies. So, where's the difference?
Label.
It would
gotta be about the difference.
Yeah, and they're still doing the same energy. They're still honoring the same energy as what they preach against.
Well, that's where it becomes really confusing for people. And the ironic part of it is that if people actually paid attention to what it was for in the first place, i.e. the idea of Halloween originally, from my understanding, at least I'll call it originally when I was a kid, the idea was get dressed in as scary a outfit as you can, whether it's an undead, whether it's a mummy, whatever. Today, it's more like getting dressed up and going to a tea party with your 3-year-old. I'm not quite certain how walking around dressed as a modern day cowboy, if you will, is supposed to be frightening. And don't get me wrong, it's enjoyable, but it does get away from what the whole concept of Halloween was, at least in my opinion.
Right, and I agree with that. And Tripp remembers parents driving him to ritzy neighborhoods, and he used a pillowcase. Well, yeah, you can hold more candy in a pillowcase.
Well, absolutely. We kept trying to get mom and dad to let us take a suitcase, take a sleeping bag, but they weren't into it.
All right.
Okay, I have an answer for him on that, on the trick-or-treating part. So, as we said, the mumming and guising was the trick part, or the treat part. The trick part actually began in Scotland. Youths went house to house with masked, painted, or black faces, often threatening to do mischief if they were not welcomed in.
Boy, that would be a bad idea in the Pacific Northwest.
Right, now you can't even go into the house. That's in danger.
When you make a threat like that, you're in trouble. You might get invited.
Well, and Awakening is bringing up, every year kids get candy that's laced with razors and poisons. You really don't hear about that so much anymore. I don't think it happens as much as it used to. And
No,
again, you got emergency rooms that offer services of X-raying the candy. And rule of thumb, and let's talk safety for a second, but rule of thumb, if it's not wrapped up in the original wrapper, our kids don't eat it, unless we actually know the individual that we're going to. But we go through the candy still. And, well, for one, I like Reese's and I take them out, but
now that's not nice. Honest, but not nice.
Oh, the whole family loves Halloween.
He's not the only one. I'm with him on that one.
Actually, yeah, we leave half the Reese's for Anthony, but I go after the Snickers. But again, if that candy, or if it's a bag of trail mix or something like that, no, the kids don't get that. We throw that away. Tripp's asking also, do you think Day of the Dead, known as Dia de Muertos in Spanish, is closer to what Halloween is meant to be? Celebrated in Mexico between October 31st and November 2nd. Now, if you look at, Halloween is All Hallows Eve, or October 31st, and All Saints Day is November 1st. Now, and we only have about 10 minutes to go before we have to start wrapping up, so we got to make it kind of quick. But All Saints Day is it not Catholic?
No, it's actually a Christian religion.
Yeah, Christian, so Catholic works.
Well, no, it doesn't, because Roman Catholics is actually a complete offshoot of Christianity. That is not to say the same thing, because they all celebrate the 3 days. And Day of the Dead is honestly just the version of the Hallowed Day in the Center for Spain. That is still, because of the Spanish Inquisition, that is still part of that holiday. Yes, they do represent it. Honestly, to me, they represent it way better, just because it's more colorful, more flashy, and they're an amazing culture. And the way they celebrate it is amazing. But just because they celebrate it differently doesn't make it meant to more what it's supposed to be, because to say that takes it away from the Irish religion completely, like the pagan religion completely. And that's not correct.
So all 3 days are combined, but they're of different religious beliefs.
They have different meanings.
And where did that come from?
So it starts with All Hallows Eve, which any Christian holiday that happens has an Eve. It's a day of preparation. So Christmas Eve, we have an Easter Eve, and it's Good Friday. They are days to prepare yourself for the coming of something great that happened. All Souls Day is, All Hallows Day is on November 1st, and then All Souls Day is November 2nd, which is considered Day of the Dead for most Christian religions. That is the day you celebrate the day. All Hallows Day would be the celebration of honoring the saints and preparing. So the day, All Hallows Day is the day you honor our saints, and All Day is the day you praying for the souls of the recently departed that have not reached heaven. So praying for your saints to make it to heaven.
And
it's pretty much what that entire holiday is for.
And anytime you start mixing, all these different religions have all these different days that all seem to coincide, in a 3-day festival is when it starts getting confusing.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, it also becomes far more enlightening and draws very clear attention to the connectivity between the different cultures and the neural net itself. Because when you think, when you look at all of the different connections, right, there has to be something linking them, even though the cultures are evolving apart from each other.
And when you look at, they may not be so negative, but they're honoring the dead. So when you're putting all these thoughts into honoring the dead, you are, in essence, bringing those energies out of the veil.
In a sense, yes, or at the very least, through it. The neat part about it is the dead aren't a bad group of people. A little confused most of the time, but they're not bad.
No, and with that, I totally agree. Just like anything, not everything's bad. Not all aliens are bad. Not all fae are bad. Again, it's an individual thing when you look at the dead. When you look at spirits, I mean, we deal with them daily.
Oh yeah, very definitely.
Eric put it pretty good earlier tonight at our meeting. He said, if you were a jerk in life, you are most likely going to be a jerk as a spirit.
And that is actually a misnomer. Because the real issue here is when you pass over, what made you a jerk in life is the biological neural interface. Once you get rid of that interference, you literally become, if you will, neutral. Far more often than you stay the way you were. If we look at numbers, the ones that remain really, really, really negative or really a jerk, the numbers are extremely tiny. Mind you, in contrast to that, the people that were really genuinely nice on this side, when they pass over, there's very few of them that stay genuinely nice on the other side.
Okay, but you actually said it perfectly. When they pass over, yes. But what we were referring to were the stuck spirits. If they haven't passed over.
But they don't have the link to the biological brain anymore. And that's where the jerk comes from. You'll find most spirits, and I know you're aware of this, most spirits that are stuck between worlds, they haven't gotten all the way across. More often than not, they're either scared or they're confused. No, there are a few that are absolutely brutal individuals, but the majority of them, it's more a fear issue. Fear and frustration.
And I agree with that aspect, because when we deal with the scared, the confused spirits, once they understand that they are dead, they tend to straighten up, and I don't even know how to explain it, but
cooperate.
They calm down, and they either agree, and that's where mediation comes in. They either agree to work with the client, or they agree to pass over. And the brutal ones, we do find stay brutal, and those are the ones that you will oftentimes find trapping spirits and holding them hostage, essentially. Once we remove the negative spirit, the other ones pass over willingly, because now they're free.
Absolutely agree with you there.
But and that's exactly what I meant by, yeah, if you were a jerk in life, depending on how much of a jerk, serial killer comes to mind, then you're going to still be a negative spirit if you haven't passed over.
Well, yeah, because if you haven't gotten all the way across, it's not so much that you're still attached, but with the real brutal ones, they stick around because they're still trying to be creeps.
Exactly. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because I didn't want Cole getting confused. So, what are we gonna do at Halloween? Anyone got plans? We're winding down to the last 6 minutes of the show, and
My
I know
family does a party every year.
You do a party? Where do you go to a party?
Well, so no, this year we're actually doing it next week. It works better because Wednesday's a horrible night to throw a party. So, and it works best with everyone's schedules. But we throw a party for all of our kids, where we do games and different activities, have a big meal, and try and scare them as much as possible.
There you go. So yeah, we're taking the kids out trick or treating like we do every year. Man, of course we haven't decorated the house yet. We still got to do that, and put the coffins up in the yard. So what are you doing, Keith?
In all fairness, I'll probably send my little guy over to his mom's place, and she'll deal with that side of it, because I happen to be working Halloween night. And therefore, since I live in an apartment, I keep it pretty quiet.
As an astrologer, you're probably busy on Halloween night.
It can be. But ironically, as with any holiday, it's almost a flip of the coin as to which one's going to work. As to whether it's going to be busy or whether it's going to be dead.
So what do you got going on, Michael? You're there in Seattle, where Seattle never sleeps. And I know they got haunted houses and all kinds of stuff going on there. What do you got planned?
Oh, they do. And our neighborhood is a big trick-or-treater neighborhood, but you're going to love this one. Every Halloween, my mother, matter of fact, before Halloween, we're probably going to start next week, we put up the old Christmas tree, the old lifelike, Costco special Christmas tree that we've got down in the basement. We decorate it just like Christmas, and my 88-year-old mother likes to play an Alzheimer old woman who doesn't know which holiday it is for all the trick-or-treater kids that come by the house. She hands out candy, peppermint candy canes, the little ones and all that kind of stuff, along with some normal Halloween candy. And it was great for the first few years that we did it, but now all the kids have grown up with it. They all see the Christmas tree blazing in the window, and they flock to our house because they just loved, to check out the old lady who thinks it's Christmas again, So that's what we do here prior to Halloween. All of my cousins coming over, put the thing together, and we kind of have a little party going on that night just to throw the kids off.
No,
Can I say one thing before we go, Eric?
Yeah, go ahead.
For all of our listeners out there, I want to ask something of you. It doesn't matter if a person's a year old or 99 years old. If someone shows up at your door in a costume and says trick or treat, doesn't matter the age, give them a candy. There is a lot worse things our teenagers and young can be doing there than trick or treating. Support them.
Absolutely.
I would agree. And if they look, if it's cold out, give them a pair of mittens.
Yeah, and if they're not wearing a costume, make them sing a song.
Or do jumping jacks.
The one difference there is if the parents are bringing a little munchkin that's in costume, well, obviously support the parents. They're taking care of the munchkins.
So when I was a kid, I actually remember my parents doing shots at certain houses.
Totally.
I'm just going to leave that alone.
All right. So thank you everyone for being on the show. It was a great show tonight. So tonight I'd like to thank everyone that was on our panel. Our Keith Andrews, Cole Whiteliner, and Michael Hall.
You're welcome.
So make sure you join
Thank you.
Make sure you join us next Saturday as we have our monthly roundtable, and might even have a special guest or two. We'll see. And so with Forest Moon, in November we do have UFO and abduction training. December we're going to have paranormal protection training and a team Christmas party. So y'all have a good night, and make sure you check out The Fringe with awesome shows like Lighting the Void with Joe Roop. And until then, y'all have a good week.
Hello, I'm Zach from the Zach Brown Band, and we're proud to be teaming up with our friends at Wells Fargo for the 4th year in a row to show support for our nation's veterans. Wells Fargo is committed to helping service members in their transition to civilian life and has hired over 8,300 veterans since 2012. With the continued pledge to providing our nation's heroes with meaningful and challenging careers, we are blessed to be in a position to help bring awareness to the needs of our service members. If you're a veteran, consider building your next career at Wells Fargo. And on behalf of the entire Zach Brown Band and Wells Fargo, we salute our service members. Thank you for your service.